This is Bacchae Journal. So starting out with question number one, what was memorable about the play? So the first thing that I noticed right away is that this play started out with a lot of not moral things. The fact that there was betrayal of a husband, Zeus. Um, Affairs like this are definitely something that catches an audience's eye, and that's something that I'll remember about this play, that it starts out like this. And not only was it an affair, but there's also a child brought out because of it, and then also a murder right after that. And I think that that really was memorable to me. Something else that was really meaningful, I guess, is that um, all the gods have a lot of wisdom and power, but they also have their limitations. Um, King Pentheus, for example, he was portrayed as idealistic and kind of the ruler of all social order. And because of this, he was just seen as young and kind of like a guardian. But his limitation was Dionysus. Dionysus came and changed the order of everything and kind of tested his power, and that was his true limitation. And I think that that kind of relates to our world today. That even though there are people of power and people that have control over certain things, they all have their limitations. So, question number two was kind of to identify three major points of tension or conflict in the play. And so the first one that I recognized was, I just mentioned it, was the Semele versus Hera, because obviously Zeus cheated on Hera with Semele and had Dionysus. And this is obviously a huge thing of tension, especially when they all have such big power and such big ability to go against one another. Um, and the fact that it did cause a murder, I think that's like a huge tension within the play. The second thing that I pointed out was the tension between Dionysus and Pentheus. Um, so, fortunately for Pentheus, like I said, he was completely the guardian of everything, and Dionysus kind of brought other people to go against him, and he tricked him continuously and made him look like a fool. And um, this kind of just makes Pentheus really revved up and really upset, and it's like a huge tension between the two characters. Um, Something that kind of goes along with that is when Pentheus gets violently dismembered by his own mother. It kind of shows the tension between the relationship of a mother and a son, and how Dionysus affected that relationship between the two. And I think that's like a huge tension between the characters as well. Agave, when she returns bearing Pentheus's head, I think that there's a tension between Dionysus and the rest of the characters in the play. He has such control over them, and he wants them to think whatever he wants to think. And when she realized like what she was actually doing, she was like super upset and super just surprised that Dionysus could have such control. And kind of at the end of the play, when Dionysus is completely in power still, in triumph, it kind of just shows like, wow, he was the complete ruler of this area, and he, and the tension between the other characters, how they all followed him. So number three, discuss how the Maenads were depicted in the play. So I kind of saw them as like vultures and just crazy women. The fact that they ripped apart Pentheus' body, and something that happens in a lot of Greek plays is that women are not always seen as powerful or smart or better than men. And I think that Euripides kind of flip sides that, the fact that these women are going out of social standards and going out of what they usually do by listening to the men or the gods, and they're doing what they want, and they're doing things that are out of the norm. And I think that he kind of shows that the oppression of women in Greek society, because this is so different. So number four, what do I think this play is about? I think that this play is about revenge. Dionysus wants to get his kingdom back and wants to be in power, and I think that it also has to do with immoral and moral values. The fact that it started out with such immoral values, and how it showed how those immoral values and immoral values that continued on the play had negative effects. And I think that it just shows how even just unsafe sex can really hurt a community, hurt a family, hurt a group of people. So number 5, if this is an ancient Greek drama, then why is Elvis Presley on the cover? I didn't even know that it was Elvis Presley, which is kind of embarrassing, but I think that Elvis is kind of a symbol for drugs, rock and roll, sex, immoral things, and I think that he kind of had a bad ending. If you know the story about Elvis Presley, how he died, and because of all those bad things, it was a bad end. And I think that Euripides kind of was thinking the same thing, that these gods were having bad morals and doing things that they weren't supposed to, and there was a bad end to it. And it might not be a tragedy, but it still was sad after all the immoral things were happening.